Welcome to chapter 3 of the book of Joel, the valley of Jehoshaphat, the fourth king of Judah, the southern kingdom. I'll read a little in the Greek and we'll go through the chapter. Oti idou ego en tesimeres akines, ke in to karo akino, oten epistrepso tin Akmalosian Iuda ke Jerusalem, sinaxo pantata ethni ke kataxo avta is tin kilada Iosaphat, ke diakrithizome prosaftus eki ipertuleo mu ke tis kleronomias mu Israel, us diaspora in tis ethnici ketigin mu kata lanto. The valley of Jehoshaphat, for I behold in those days and in that time, whenever the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem shall return. The captivity, now, this is very interesting because now Joel doesn't really mention any king or what time this is going on, but Israel has been taken captive, and this is Judah and Jerusalem, the southern kingdom. So it sounds like Joel may be even post captivity, because he knows about the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, which would actually make him one of the later prophets. But the Jerusalem and Judah were taken captive not only by Babylon, and where the people were taken into Babylon, and then they were returned. It doesn't sound like it's the time of Babylon, because it mentions here a dispersal into the Greeks. The other possibility would be Rome, and that the Romans sent the people throughout the world, all the Jews, after they captured Jerusalem in 70 AD, and then after the Bar Kokhba revolt, and I think it was like 130, and all the Jews went out all throughout the world. So if it was a second, then the gathering of the nations against Judah and Jerusalem wouldn't be until our time, basically, I believe, and that's what I think it is. It's talking about our time. We'll go into a little bit more here as far as Rome. It says down here where he dispersed them among the nations, the ones who divided. Well, let me just go into the second chapter. And I will gather all the nations and will lead them into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will litigate with them there over my people and my inheritance, whom I dispersed among the nations, even the one who divided my land, and that probably was Rome. And they cast lots over my people. I think about Jesus here in the casting of the lots, but that's kind of a stretch, and gave the boys to harlots and sold the young women for wine, and they drank. And then in 4, what are you to me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all Galilee of the Philistines? Do you recompense a recompense to me, or do you have resentment to me? Swiftly and quickly I will recompense your recompense upon your heads, because you took my silver and my gold and the chosen things of mine, the good things you carried into your temples, and the sons of Judah and the sons of Jerusalem you rendered to the sons of the Greeks. So now, I don't see where that is. It couldn't be Babylon, because I don't know of anywhere where the Babylonians sent the Jews to Greece. Rome, possibility. But the present time, we do have a diaspora where the Jews are all over the world. But in 48, they came back to Judah and Jerusalem, and so they are there now. In verse 2, and so he's going to gather all these nations into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will litigate them there over my people. in my inheritance Israel, whom I dispersed. the valley of Jehoshaphat isn't a valley on the map like the Jezreel Valley up in Megiddo, the northern part of Israel. The valley of Megiddo is a spiritual valley, even though there is a physical element to it. Now, we'll go through that. We'll see how this valley of Jehoshaphat. Now, what was the valley of Jehoshaphat? By the way, here I forgot. I was going to start off the video and mention the last video about the Megiddo mosaic on how it mentions Jesus Christ. And here it is. Here I took a picture. This is in a building, I don't know, it's maybe 20 by 10, and it had a table, a place for a table, which was no longer there. But they uncovered this, and it says, Prosenican, dedicated akeptus, a person, probably a woman, make it a feminine, a friend of God, philia theos, a friend of God, the teen, trapesan, Trapesan, the trapesan, and then theo, in the dative, to theo, to God, and then the EU, Jesus, EUs, Christo. He, and over lines over them means they're abbreviations. They use this. This could have been within 100 years of Christ being alive when the centurion built this temple. And it says here, minimosinon, a memorial. So that was it. I mentioned the last one. I forgot to bring it out. But now we're going to go to the valley of Jehoshaphat, 2 Chronicles 20:14, where it says, and Jahaziel, the son of Zechariah, son of Benaiah, son of Jeiel, son of Mattaniah, the Levite of the sons of Asaph, came upon him Spirit of the Lord in the assembly. And he said, Hearken all Judah and the ones dwelling in Jerusalem, and King Jehoshaphat. Thus says the Lord to you. It says, Do not fear, nor be terrified from the face of this vast multitude. And these vast multitude was the countries which are today in Jordan, the Ammonites, Moabites, and the Edomites. Ammon up north, Moab, Edom at the south, by the Dead Sea, on the east side of the Dead Sea and the Jordan River. So the words came and not to fear, not to be terrified of this vast multitude. For all these people were coming. Apparently they came across the Jordan because the valley that it mentions is on the western side of the Jordan, southwest of Jerusalem. For the battle array is not to you, but to God. Tomorrow go down against them. Behold, they ascend according to the ascent of Ziz, and you shall find them at the tip of the river of the wilderness of Jeruel. It is not for you to wage war in this. Stand and perceive and see the deliverance of the Lord with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Do not fear, nor be terrified tomorrow to go forth for meeting them. Even the Lord is with you. And Jehoshaphat bowed upon his face and upon the earth, and all Judah and the ones dwelling in Jerusalem fell before the Lord to do obeisance to Kyrio. And the Levites rose up from the sons of Kohath and from the sons of the Korhites to give praise to the Lord. See, praise and obeisance are two different things. This week, King James calls worship, but actually it's get your face on the ground. Praise is more of a worship. To give praise to the Lord God of Israel with a great voice unto the height. And they rose early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. Now we'll go to the wilderness of Tekoa. And here we see Jerusalem, and the wilderness of Tekoa is closer to the Dead Sea, and Gedi, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and so forth. So now these people have come across somehow around, probably down south underneath, and come up and are going to attack Israel. And they rose early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. But in their going forth, Jehoshaphat stood and yelled. And Jehoshaphat was basically a good king. The only major problem is he didn't get rid of the idols, and he joined with Ahab, the king of Israel, against the Syrians, where Israel was defeated, and Ahab was killed. But then Jehoshaphat sought the Lord, so he was considered a good king. And then he says, "Hear me, O Judah, and O ones dwelling in Jerusalem, and trust in the Lord your God, and you will be entrusted, and trust in his prophet, and you will be prosperous." And being advised with the people, then he stationed psalm singers and ones praising the Lord to acknowledge and to praise in the holy, in the going forth before the force. So he saw that he needs God. God is the one that will help him, the helper, and his shield holder. And so he is acknowledging and praising God, which is what we should do when we are facing adversity. And they said, "Give acknowledgement to the Lord, for into the eon is his mercy." And when they began the praise and the acknowledgement, the Lord appointed an ambush for the sons of Ammon to wage war against Moab and Mount Seir. Now, Ammon was up north, and they're down over there towards Jerusalem, but the Ammonites are fighting now against the Moabites and the Edomites, probably Mount Seir, of the ones coming forth against Judah, and they put them to flight. And the sons of Ammon and Moab rose up against the ones dwelling Mount Seir to utterly destroy and obliterate them. So now the enemy is fighting each other. And as they finished off the ones dwelling in Seir, they rose up against one another. And a man took his neighbor for hurt. So now they're fighting against themselves, Ammonites. And Judah came upon the height in the wilderness. So it's a high place, and looked. And it's like down on a valley. And they beheld the multitude. And behold, all were dead, having fallen upon the ground. There was not one surviving. And Jehoshaphat came forth, and his people, to despoil their spoils. And they found much cattle and belongings and spoils and desirable items. And they despoiled for themselves. And they were 3 days plundering the spoils, for there was much. And on the 4th day they assembled, here it is, in the valley of the blessing. Now, barakah is the Hebrew word, but it doesn't mean anything if you just hear barakah in the King James is what it says. But the Greek here is valley of blessing. And this is, for there they bless the Lord. So it's not a real true, it's a place, yes, but the valley of blessing is because they bless the Lord. On account of this, they call the name of that place Valley of Blessing until this day. Barakah. And every man of Judah returned to Jerusalem. And Jehoshaphat leading them returned to Jerusalem in great gladness, for the Lord gladdened them from their enemies. And they entered into Jerusalem with stringed instruments and lutes and with trumpets into the house of the Lord. And came to pass a change of state of the Lord upon all the kingdoms of the earth, very important, in the hearing that the Lord waged war against the ones being opponents of Israel. Next, IFF, identification, friend or foe. Now, the time that is now, and Israel is going to be attacked by these nations, whoever it is, many more, and Israel is going to win the war, defeat them, and they're not going to have to do anything. Well, you say, well, how can that be? Nobody today would think that that's a possibility. If you have Russia, the countries from the far north, or Iran, all the Muslim countries, nobody helping Israel, what chance do they have? They have none. Now, Israel today can look at this and see that God confused the enemy. And the IFF, it says, is an identification system designed for command and control. It uses a transponder that listens for an interrogation signal and then sends a response that identifies the broadcaster. IFF systems usually use radar frequencies, but other electromagnetic frequencies, radio or infrared, may be used. Wi-Fi, who knows today. It enables military and civilian air traffic control interrogation systems to identify aircraft, vehicles. Well, so now the whole idea of this is that if the attackers against Israel have some type of a thing that would tell them that a code that they would have in their attack not to hit friendly forces, and this code would go out and they would pick it up and they would know that that thing that they're picking up is not to be attacked because the code says it's one of ours, a friendly. But if it doesn't have it, it attacks. This is what happened in the last Gulf War. I had one heavy casualty the United States did where that happened for the friendly fire. So I believe that the Valley of Jehoshaphat is going to be again happening maybe in our lifetime here, maybe not in mine, but I'm in my 80s. But these attack against Israel that will the people will all come against each other, and Israel won't have to do anything. He'll destroy them. Now, maybe Israel will do something. I don't know, but this is what I see. Now we're going to go back to Joel in verse 4. So they whoever took the nations gave the boys to harlots, young women sold for wine. And then he goes against Tyre and Sidon, which was powerful nations at the time, almost as powerful as Babylon, and all Galilee of the Philistines. So apparently the Lebanese or the Tyre and Sidon people came down, the Philistines took over the Galilee area. And he says, are you going to, do anything against me, basically? And he complains that they took the gold and silver of Judah and put it into their temples and rendered the sons of the Jerusalem into the Greeks. Now, that could be the Tyre and Sidon back in those days, not Babylon, because Tyre did go into the Greek areas. They were seafaring people in the Mediterranean. And so that you should push them out of their borders. And behold, I will awaken them from out of the place of which and I will recompense unto your heads of these nations that come against God. Remember, it says there at the end in the 2 Chronicles that God is going to put a fear of Israel into all the nations. After Israel destroys all these nations, Russia, Iran, the Muslim countries, who knows how many that it destroys are destroyed by themselves, that everybody is going to be afraid of Israel. Israel will be a world power, the world power. Everybody will fear it. This is where the man of sin will now come in. And I believe in that, in a temple that's going to be in the future, which we went through in the 2nd chapter here of Joel. And I will render your sons and your daughters into the hands of the sons of Judah. So all these people today, or close here when Israel is attacked, these people are all going to be controlled by Israel. And they shall render them into captivity into a nation far at a distance. All these people are going to be, this army, the ones that survive are going to be sent into a nation. For the Lord spoke, it's going to happen. And then so now from verse 8, it's, I believe, a future time close at hand. And it continues in verse 9, proclaim these things among the nations. Now, sanctify a war, awaken the warriors, lead forward and ascend all the men of war, which Israel is. Cut up your plows into broadshares, and your swords, and your sickles into spears, which they're doing. They're making many weapons. Let the powerless say that I am strong, and Netanyahu, the president, came in front of the United Nations and said Israel is never again going to be taken like all the Jews were to the slaughterhouse by the Nazis. Gather together and enter all nations round about, and gather together there, all the ones coming against Israel. Let the gentle one be a warrior in Israel, all of them. Awaken and ascend all nations into the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Now, I don't believe this is necessarily the place, but it could be the condition of attack. For there I will sit to separate all the nations round about. It's going to happen. Send out sickles, for the gathering of crops stands by, and the armaments. Enter in, tread, for the wine vat is full. The wine vats overflow, and these nations come in and they are killed, and the wine, the blood up to the bridle of the horse, maybe of Revelation what it's referring to. For their evils are multiplied. Sounds resounded in the valley of punishment. That's the valley of Jehoshaphat. For a day of the Lord is near in the valley of punishment. So it's not only blessing, but punishment to the enemies. The sun and the moon shall darken, and the stars shall let down their brightness. That's a clue that it hasn't happened yet. Verse 16, but the Lord shall shout aloud from Zion, and shall utter his voice from out of Jerusalem. And the heaven and the earth shall be shaken, but the Lord shall spare his people, and shall strengthen the sons of Israel. Now, this time here at 16 could be a later time of Ezekiel's temple in the 1,000 years, because we don't always have this. It's not a chronological. The Bible is not a super chronological work. It jumps around many places, time-wise. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God, encamping in Zion, my holy mountain. And Jerusalem will be holy, and foreigners shall not go through her any longer. Well, that's certainly not today, so that's a future time. Jerusalem still can be around during the 1,000 years after the tribulation, and then the 1,000 years. I believe Jerusalem is going to be destroyed along with the wilderness south and the Negev, some type of a nuclear war. I mentioned that earlier, I thought. But Jerusalem will be holy, and foreigners shall not go through her any longer. Now, you could say, well, this is a New Jerusalem. Now, that's a kind of a stretch, the New Jerusalem of the 21st chapter of Revelation. And it will be in that day, the mountains will trickle down sweetness, and the hills shall flow milk, and all the releases of Judah shall flow waters, and a spring shall come forth from out of the house of the Lord. Now here is the later time, the 1,000-year reign, where this happens, because it says in Ezekiel 43:4 that the glory of the Lord entered into the house. That was the one at 1,000-year reign, according to the way of the gate, according to the east. So this is after the 1,000 years that this is part of Joel is talking about. Now, if we go up to Ezekiel, and he brought me into the thresholds of the house, and behold, water went forth from beneath the open space of the house, and that's in the temple according to the east. For the front of the house looked according to the east, and that would be Mount Meron, where the temple is facing the Lake of Galilee. And the water went down from the south of the house of the right unto the south of the altar, and he led me according to the way of the gate towards the north, and led me by the way outside to the gate of the courtyard, looking according to the east, and behold, the water carried down from the right side. And there was a man exiting right opposite, and a measure was in his hand, and he measured, and he went through in the water of the release. And it goes in here, he measured the water, got deeper and deeper, and he says, this water going forth unto Galilee. Couldn't be Jerusalem, because the water is going forth towards the east. Can't be Jerusalem. It has to be Mount Meron. So this is what I see that Joel is talking about here. And all the releases of Judah shall flow waters, and a spring shall come forth from out of the house, and shall water the rushing streams of the rushes. So now this water coming from the house is going to go into the Lake of Galilee, down the Jordan, and possibly somehow even over into other areas. But Egypt will be for extinction, though that hasn't happened yet. And Edom, that is the southeastern part of the Dead Sea, a plain for extinction from out of the iniquities of the sons of Judah, because they poured out blood of the just ones in their land, not the people in Judah, but Edom. And I believe that's destroyed in this wilderness area, is all atomized, nuclear. But Judea shall dwell into the eon, and Jerusalem for generations of generations. And I will require their blood, and in no way will I acquit, says the Lord. And the Lord shall encamp in Zion. Now, this Jerusalem going for generations or generations, it doesn't say where it begins and where it stops. It could be 1,000 years. Jerusalem still is around, although the temple is on Mount Meron, because Jerusalem was decimated to the point where it's no longer became the temple. That's a possibility. I'm not sure, but the Lord shall encamp in Zion. So now we know that the thing here mentioned by Joel is very soon to happen, I believe. You have to watch all the different signs of what's going on, find out. But I hope you want to join us and continue with the next video seminar. I'm going to be going through Obadiah, a very short one-chapter book that also is, the time is not known, but it's also one of the most eschatological books of the last times. And want to stay tuned and join us in Obadiah, the next video. Until then, God bless.